And I have the privilege of serving as vice president of this institution that has been around for over 100 years. And in Los Angeles framework, that's like being a 1,000-year-old noodle shop in Japan. We are a club that for the past century has invited explorers, test pilots, various goofballs, things like that, to come and share in brotherhood, fellowship, in the spirit of adventure. And in that spirit, I am honored and privileged to be talking tonight to Charles Bisset. Thank you for coming. And Charles, you are literally from Valhalla, a place in Canada. And so from Valhalla, you would later go on to become a cowboy and then a world champion kickboxer. And I'm ecstatic to hear about that journey. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So yeah, you were born in Valhalla. What's going on?
So my dad was raised on a dude ranch in Maryland, a little 400-acre dude ranch, and moved away. He was a rodeo guy. Moved away, got into music, and started to tour around. Was living the city life. Lived in New Jersey for like 10 years, and just kind of got sick and tired of that, and went on a little tour up in Canada, and fell in love with the Valhalla Mountains and Selkirk Mountains. And he decided to stay up there for a bit and bought 35 acres in the middle of nowhere, like way in the mountains, nobody around. And he went back home for a bit, met my mom, and brought her back up there. And literally off grid, he built everything in the cabin by hand, all the wood from the forest. And they ended up having us up there. And I spent 17 years completely off grid. My parents were music teachers. My mom is an opera teacher and a classical pianist. And my dad would also teach music as well. He taught voice. But we always had about 20 horses up there. And that's kind of how we grew up. But activities in the mountains was summertime, getting enough wood to keep heat in the house in wintertime. And wintertime was activities where, shoveling the snow off the roofs. We lost like a bunch of our cabin up there because of the snowfall. Average winter up there was 5 to 7 feet of snow. 1997, we had 21 feet of snow. And then to get home in the wintertime, because there's so much snow, we were like 5 miles up a mountain. We'd have to go by sled, by snowmobile to get home. So it sounds really fun, but if you're going over, my dad'd be gone during the week too. So my mom I had a sister, the two of us going up a mountain is, getting stuck in a snowstorm on a snowmobile isn't the funnest thing, for a woman like that. But my mom, she's a tough woman,
Yeah. Where did your father acquire that knowledge? It seems almost like we're in the internet era now, but yeah, so how do you?
Well, my dad grew up on a dude ranch, and he spent a summer with a woodworker, with like a cabin builder, and that's how he acquired the knowledge for building cabins. And he was a wrangler growing up. He was wrangling horses since he was like 15, grew up on a farm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are we seeing pictures of Valhalla on the
cabin with snow on the roof.
Yes, excellent. Hopefully someday. Excellent. So did you have an idea that was peculiar, or like it was just your life?
It's all I knew. Yeah. It's all I knew. Also, like, because we live in the middle of nowhere, I was homeschooled. Mm-hmm. So, my social activities with kids was singing in choirs. I was like a little choir boy, and my mom had like 3 little choirs. I'd be singing in those and be interacting with adults like they're students, right? So I didn't have a social life as far as hanging out with other kids in schools and whatnot. And that's kind of how I got into fighting, but that's a little later on. But other activities up there, it was a great life, but it's also hard. There was times where, like, simplest things, when you go into town, if you're gone for like a day or two, which sometimes we would be gone for a day or two, if you get to turn off the water, we've had winters where our pipes were completely frozen. We didn't have water for the whole winter because it gets that cold up there, right? And then we'd have to haul water up from waterfalls and fill up our tub so we can use that for a toilet, and we'd have to sponge bathe, So you just have to really use your head up there,
Yeah, are you constantly focused, like anything can kill you, or is it just, like, how's it compared to city life that you have now, right? Like,
it's just different. I think the city is much more of a jungle than out there,
Could you elaborate on that?
When I first of all moved to LA, I mean, it was just, I was like, man, this is crazy. I felt in my head, I thought it was a lot more dangerous. When I came to the city, I was like, man, where am I going to get lost here? I don't know where I'm going. But also, there's a lot of comforts in the city, like just the luxury of having hot water. That's a big luxury that people take for granted. Or being able to drive into your driveway and walk home and not have to where like we've had times where we had to drive over an already fallen avalanche. And there was also times when my dad, there's one story, my dad and I were driving home, we had a generator for a little while, and it was between the two of us, and he was too close to this little cliff, and we fell off. And I remember I was chucked way down the bank, and I remember seeing this thing, it caught my dad in between it and the generator and the snowmobile, and it was just like tumbling, and it went down to the waterfalls. I thought my dad was like, seriously hurt, and I was like, Dad, and he's like, what? And he was fine, but it took us like 10 hours, 12 hours the next day to get the snowmobile and the generator out of there. But yeah, I think I appreciate the simple things like that, like being able to drive into your home and not have to battle a snowstorm, but I miss that a lot too.
What do you miss about it?
The freedom, and just the quietness, and I think it's everything out there is just a lot more pure.
Yeah.
I just miss it.
Right.
Certain things. When I would go back every summer since I've been in LA for the past like 10, 11 years, I've been going back there for 2 weeks every summer, and I just turn off. That's like my happy place. The cabin's in a little bit rougher shape, but I still get to go up there and just feel like a kid again. We had a little while where we did have generators up there too, and it was always kind of off and on. They're always breaking down, but like this is one thing I got to give props to my mom, because she was just a hard-working woman. We had a generator going for a little while, and my sister and I were inside, and it ran out of gas, and these generators were a lot older back then, and she didn't wait long enough to go fill it up with gas, and she went out there too soon, and she just had a flashlight, and she was trying to fill it up, and the gas spilled a little bit out, and it hit a spark plug, and then the generator just blew up, and we just heard it, and like I just remember seeing like a body kind of like jumping out in the snow and rolling around, and then she was running the generator shed was on fire. So she ran back inside, and she was just like, get your clothes on, like we're going to town, like the place is on fire. And I remember my mom, like she had some pretty bad burns, but during this whole time she got plastic bags, and she got her music books and put them in plastic bags and threw them out into the snow, because that's how she was going to provide for us, was music. So she wanted to make sure her books were safe so she could make a living, right? And I just remember like us getting on the back of the snowmobile and looking back when we were going down the mountain. It's pitch black because there's nobody else up there. It's like the nearest town is an hour away, I remember just looking back there like, wow, our house is like burning on, And we went to town, and we went to my dad's best man, and him and his son were able to go up there and put the fire out, So that was just some of the stuff up there.
It's interesting that like culture was the livelihood in like the stark Canadian wilderness, right? Like,
yeah, isn't that funny?
Like, save the family photos and the Bach.
Yeah, that's funny. They're very, very eccentric people.
Yeah.
And
so you were in the choir until age 11, and then you discovered violence as a
well, I always wanted to be involved. Like hockey's huge in Canada, and I couldn't be in hockey because I wasn't in the school system, and I always wanted to have a way to socialize with other kids, and being in choirs isn't really like that happens like an hour here and there, like once a week. So I would go to the library and rent out these like kung fu and taekwondo books, and I would just be like practicing this stuff and like seeing a kung fu movie here and there. And I thought like, oh man, I really want to do that. And then we found out there's like nothing like that around this one town my parents taught at. It was 3.5 hours from where our cabin was, but they taught a lot in this town. It's called Trail BC. And we found there's a Thai boxing club there, and they had these fights once a year. It's called the Trail Fights. And they took me in there, and we saw this ring and all these bags. And my mom asked about it. I was like, yeah, I want to do it, So I got involved, and I started doing classes there. And I was like this big 11-year-old with like, long hair. And it was just funny. I remember the first time I sparred, I thought like, oh yeah, I'm going to try out all these moves I like learned from the library and the books, and I just got my ass whooped, And I was like, oh man, that doesn't work. So this is the real deal right here. So I stuck with it, and I remember, by the time I was 14, they invited me to start training with like the pros and their fight team, and I was like, oh man, like I'm getting close. I could possibly fight, because the fighters there, like we'd always be doing class, and you see them like all come in with the tracksuits, and that kind of came with this mystique. You're like, wow, that's a fighter. That's so cool, And you're just like, man, I just want to have one fight. That'd be really fun to have one fight. And they invite me to train with them. And I remember the first day I trained with them, they just whooped my ass, like bad, you know? And they were all just laughing like, no, there's no way he's coming back. Like he went back, and I came back, and I got whoopings for like a year. And then by the time I was 15, I was able to hold my own. And they're like, all right, you want to fight? And I was like, yeah. So they got me a fight in the next province in Alberta in this nightclub called Roadhouse. And it was funny, right? I know. And
Okay.
I went and I fought a kid there, and it was a great experience. I never experienced anything like that. It was when you have your first fight, you don't know what you're getting into, so you're very naive. I remember being back there, and there were some kids that fought in there. They all, like, a couple of them made it to the UFC and did really well, and there's like a really special kind of group in there, and we're all just like, yeah, you know, like you just didn't know what you're getting into, and then you go in there and you get into a fight, and you're just like, I remember. I was going into the third round. My one coach, he was like a 6-time Canadian champion. He kind of was like, somebody has been running, because I was like sucking wind, you know. And I won the fight by unanimous decision. I got back there and I was just hooked. I was like, wow, this is like my drug, you know. And I just wanted more of it. And I was like, oh man, like, because the whole idea is like, I'm just gonna do one, so I have the mystique, and then, you know, I'm good with that, you know. And I was like, okay, I'll have two, you know. And then it's turned into 3, 4, 5, 8, you know, when I was back there. And the gym I came from was called Pride Gym. That place I owe so much to. The coach, he's like still like my first coach. His name's Glenn Klesniko, and I owe that man like everything. I have nothing but respect and love for him, because he was really hard on us kids, but he had us fighting 30-year-olds and 35-year-olds when we were 15. But he made us men, you know. He was a hard coach, and I respect and I appreciate what he did for us now a lot more. He's a good man.
So the age discrepancy was like 20 years of the people you were fighting?
Yeah, like I fought one kid that was my age, and then after that, it was like all 20 and 30-year-olds, because I was fighting at 160. My first fight, I was 165, and I cut like 10 pounds. And then after that, it was, by the time I was 16, I was fighting 185, and I was cutting from 195. I was a big kid. So, yeah, I only fought one teenager. That was it. Yeah.
Did that create like a disrespect for your elders kind of thing, or like,
no? Like it just
was it like drinking beer too young, where you're like, oh, I should have waited to
No, it was like
beat up an adult when I'm an adult. Like
we at Pride Gym, like we always just fought like adults, and we kind of had this thing like we had a reputation like, yeah, you're gonna fight one of those kids. They're like, you know, we'd fight people that had like 10, 15 more fights than us too. But they knew if we were from Pride Gym, they knew that we were like, you know, little savages, and we were gonna like fight to the end. Like it was gonna be an ugly fight. We had a reputation that way. So whenever we like rolled up to the fights, like everybody knew who we were.
Was that an extension of like the homeschool rugged culture kind of thing, where like all ages are together and you're gonna do what you have to do to save Bach from the fire, you know?
No, I don't know. I don't know about that, because growing up being homeschooled, like I had nobody else. It was just me, my mom, my sister. So I don't think that had to do anything with anything. When we went to the gym, Glenn was the coach. He was managing everything, and he just said, "You're fighting this guy," you know.
Yeah.
And you're like, "Okay, yes, sir." You know, you didn't really talk about it. So whatever he said went.
It seems to be like an unusual amount of people who came into the UFC from that small area. Is that just the culture of the coach around that, or was there something else you would describe to that?
No, that was Glenn, and like you know, they were this tougher back then too. You know, like Glenn was back then. He was just like, he was a beast.
Yeah.
You know, he still does this thing. He has an awesome gym up there, and he's still doing it. But he's like focused on more like, you know, training people. He has a couple fighters, but he's not quite as focused on that anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're 15. You're in Canada, and you're like, you've beaten up 2 people, and you're like, what's next? So what happens?
So
like, how do you leave Valhalla?
Yeah,
to give it the mythical narrative. Right?
I whatchamacallit, I went to farrier school, so I became a certified blacksmith, a farrier. And I came back and I was like, okay, well, I'm getting pretty close. I think I want to, you know, try this cowboying thing out a little more, you know?
Right.
And then by the time I was 16, I had a really horrific car accident with my mom, and I broke my femur, and I was in a hospital for a while, and then I had to move off the mountain. And having to move into a town really kind of killed me, you know? I was not happy. And after that, I called my horseshoe instructor, and I was like, hey, do you know anybody that's hiring? And he said, yeah, the guy you went to school with, he has an outfitter business up in the Northwest Territories by Alaska. So I told him I got a job as a wrangler for his outfitter, like hunters. And I went up there for a few months, and I was just wrangling horses. And that was my first experience away from home. And it was great. I remember my first day of work was 19 hours. It was a 19-hour ride, and it was brutal. And they definitely were, they forgot my sleeping bag. They said they would pack it, and they put it in the plane instead, and they gave me like a child's sleeping bag. It was like cotton, had Dalmatians on it, and we were just like soaking wet. And we set everybody up with like really nice tents, and me and some of the other wranglers, we had like a tarp around us, and we were just shivering for like 4 hours. We had to do it all over again. The next day was a 17-hour day. The day after that was a 15-hour day, and we finally got there. It was brutal, you know, it was a brutal job. And it was like, I remember when we got there, they're like, yeah, okay, so pay us $75 a day. And we're all like, $75 a day? We looked at it, like, me and this other kid were like 17, he was like 18. I was like, oh my God, we're gonna be rich. I remember that, you know? And that job was done in a few months. And then I called my horseshoe instructor. I said, hey, do you know anybody else that is hiring? He said, I just taught this guy that's a foreman at a feedlot, at Van Ray Feedlot, and he's looking for cowboys. And I was like, great. And come from the mountains, I always had horses, and I was a certified farrier, but I didn't work with cattle, so I was very novice with that stuff. So I was like, okay, great. And Van Ray Farms is one of the biggest privately owned feedlots in Canada. So I went there, got a job there, and I was just like learning about like how to find sick cows. And there's 4 feedlots. I worked at the north lot, there was a west lot, east lot, and south lot, and each lot could hold up to 25,000 head of cattle. So it was big, and that many, like, you know, feedlots aren't the best. I'm sure you know about that. But that many cattle on one condensed lot, you learn a lot about sickness and how to spot a sick cow and what kind of stuff you need to treat them, you know?
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, for one, they're getting fed silage, and like, you know, it's not the best thing, you know, so they're trying to fatten them up, and there's so many cows in one spot, there's a lot of, like, they get pneumonia, they get sickness a lot easier, so you have to run through a chute, you give them a drug, and, you know, and then you put them back out, you're trying to fatten them up, right? And like, grass-fed is always better, you know, because there are not so many cows in one condensed spot, so they won't get sick as easy, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does wrangling compare to fighting?
This is different. I mean, like, it's super different. Everybody has a big notion, like, oh my man, like being a cowboy must be so peaceful and like so calm, but like, man, it was stressful because I was a child. So like, my foreman when I was at the feedlot, I was doing double duty. Like, you'd work 9 days straight. It was 10-hour days, and then he knew I was eager to learn, so he kind of was like, hey, do you want to ride colts for me? You know, like, you start like breaking in horses, right? And I was like, yeah, that sounds great, you know? So I would go to his place after work and just ride colts for free for him, just to get experience. And then it kind of turned into a thing where he's kind of taking advantage of that a bit, and he was just having me ride tons of colts, like a lot of colts. And I would be doing that for a long time. So, you know, back then, I didn't have a cell phone. It was like early 2000s or 2005 or something like that. And I didn't have a car, so it was lonely. You're just out there by yourself, which was fine, but it's very stressful. Like, if a cow dies, and they're gonna be like, why didn't you see that? Like, that's on you, you know. If that happens again, you're gonna get fired, you know. So that's something that's always like, it's a high stress job, and it's like, it's go. So when I was done with the feedlot, I did a couple of little small jobs here and there, and then I went to Saskatchewan, and I started riding colts full time. I was riding like 10, 12, 13 colts a day, like starting colts. And I was working on this like ranch with the parsonages. It was a parsonage ranch. And they were just great hands with the horses. I just learned a lot from them. I rode colts to them for probably 8 months, and I broke my wrist on a colt. I got bucked off pretty bad. And I kept working, but my wrist kept getting buggered up. So I left a little bit early because I just couldn't continue riding colts with a broken wrist and in a cast. So I went home, and I was just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to chill for a little bit. And I got the cast off, and I was figuring, okay, either wait till spring, go back to the parsonage ranch, or maybe work in a feedlot in the meantime. But the goal was like work on a big outfit, because when you work on a big outfit, that's kind of like you've made it. You know, if like film industry, you get to work on certain ranches. It's kind of like saying you worked with certain directors, right? So my dad worked on this one ranch called Douglas Lake Ranch, and it's like a 1 million acre ranch in outside of Merritt, BC. And there's certain ranches like Douglas Lake, Big Gang, Nicola, and those are all in BC. And there's other ranches down like Texas, like the King Ranch or the Spanish Ranch out in Nevada. They're all like 1 million acre ranches. There's like really a lot of mystique to them. So I was like, well, you know, why not? I'll send my resume in. I doubt I'll get hired. And they hit me up and they offered me a job. So I went there and I was just super eager. And man, when they say there's like levels to this, there were. Like those guys were this masters. And I was like out of my league. They were the like top hands. And I remember when I was there, I said, okay, well, one thing I have is I'm an incredibly hard worker. I'm really athletic. So whenever there was a shovel or there's any kind of thing, I was running and I was like working my ass off, you know, and I made myself valuable, right? And then I'd be around these guys and I'd just be watching, listening, learning, you know, constantly. And my skills went up and I was becoming a better hand myself. And throughout the time, I just learned so much. Like these guys, like the way they had their operation was like calving time starts. It's like February and it goes until end of April. And so they had like a feedlot for the heifers, and then the cows would be out in a like big pasture, and you'd be always riding. You have like rotations. So, you know, didn't matter, wasn't by order or anything like that. So you get your worksheet, and if you're riding day shift, it's a 10-hour shift. If you're riding night shift, it's a 14-hour shift. No difference in the pay. It's just, you know, luck of the draw what you get, right? And you're just riding the feedlot looking for heifers that are having trouble calving because it's the first time having, you know, birthing, right? So you see that, you run them through a chute and you stick your hand up there.
Up where?
Up the heifer,
Yeah.
you know, to see how everything's filling. And you feel the hoof. The hoof is like this. You're like, okay, so she needs to be pulled. So you take this chain, put it above the hock, and then you do a double half-hitch knot, right? Pull the chain out, you put a hook on it, and your partner does the same thing. And you pull, and you wait till the shoulder pops. And then the other guy pulls, you wait till the shoulder pops, and then you both pull it out together, right? And then this was such a good program they had. You put some straw up his nose, making sure he coughed a little bit, and then you get some colostrum, mix it up, and you take this tube and put this tube down into his stomach, not his lungs, because you can drown it then. So you put it down his stomach, and you just put the colostrum in his stomach, so you give that little extra bit of life for him, you know, a little extra fighting chance. Put him, take him inside, you weigh him, there's this thing, you weigh him, and then you write down how much he weighs, what time he was born, you put him into a stall, and then you let the mom go in there too. And if you put your hand up there, and the hoof is like this, that's a breech birth, and then you have to do cesarean if you can't get it turned over. So these guys were doing like cesareans. These guys were like top, right? After calving's done, they're all turned out a bit, and then you have to bring back in. And this was like my favorite is branding, because then you're branding like 5 days a week, and you're branding like 300 to 500 calves a day. And you know you're roping, you're wrestling, and the older guys are inoculating, castrating calves, and it's just a fun time. It's like hard work, but at that time too, that was like, you know, I'd be roping and having fun, but on the ground, I was a beast. So there'd be spots on, there'd be the fire, and one side there'd be 2 forks, which a fork has rubber on it, and you put it behind the calf's neck, and then when it's drug up by the roper, right? And 2 guys would handle that. And on my side, I'd be handling both forks, and then I'd be going old school style and wrestling a calf. So I was just like really make myself valuable. That was the whole calving, that was the whole branding time. And then you have summer turnout, and you're this going into cow camp too. So they would have 2 different sides. There was one called Mini Lake and one called Chaparral. And Mini Lake is where all the bachelors got to go, and that was a fun time. And they were like a guy short, so I had to go to Chaparral, and I had to be with where all the married guys were, which was cool. This one guy kind of mentored me. And Chaparral was smaller, but it was a lot more woodsy and mountainy kind of area because it's such a big ranch. And you're just riding. You're riding like long days. You're making sure they don't overgraze the grass. You're looking for foot rot. You're looking for pneumonia. If you see something that's fun, you get to head them and heal them. You get to rope them. You got to doctor them. Some days you're just like, okay, we got to do fence. You know, you got to ride fence, and you got to do fencing all day.
What's fencing?
So there's fence on like barbed wire fence.
Yeah.
And you have to go ride a fence, and if there's any like barbed wire that's broken, get off, you splice it, you know, you have some pliers, you splice it and fix it right there. Or if there's fence that's really bad, you and a partner are going to go ride that thing or walk it all day long and have to fix fence all day, because you can't be having cows getting across into other fields, right? And then there's once the summer's done, you have a roundup, and you put everything back in, and you put the heifers into the feedlots, the cows into the winter pastures, and that's the cycle. So I was there for a year, an amazing experience. And it's when I was at Douglas Lake, I was always like, my parents are artists, I always like wanted to like experience acting a bit, right? And I was always thinking to myself, I was riding night shift like with a flashlight looking for calving heifers, and I was talking to my horse, I was like, I think one of these days I'm gonna go for this 6 months. I'm gonna go for 6 months to LA. Let's try this whole acting thing out. If I don't do it, it'll haunt me, right? So I was like talking to myself, with a horse. And I did want to try out. I did want to go to Australia and work on like one of the big stations over there, or I wanted to go to California and do some cowboying down here. So I was like, okay, California's a lot closer, and that's kind of in the right direction anyway. So I went to Los Banos, just outside of Fresno, and I got in a place where I was starting colts there. So I started colts for like 6 weeks with this guy. It was done, all the colts were started, and I asked him, I was like, hey, do you know any ranches around here? He's like, yeah, I know this 35,000 acre ranch is up above Fortuna, California. And he says, I'll call the guy. And he's like, yeah, he needs a hand. So I went up there, got a job, and cowboyed up there for about like a year. And that was a really great experience too. And that was like, I felt like I was 21. I thought like, oh man, I worked on the big outfit, so I had that confidence. And this guy's name was John Rice, and he was just like a real cool dude. He was still cowboying. He was 71, and he gave me the one half of the ranch, and I was just riding by myself and just checking cows, doctoring things, and it was a great year. I had a really good time there. And the grandson, actually is one of my sponsors now for when I fight as well. So we're all kind of still in the family, But yeah.
How does breaking a colt compare to breaking a man?
Well, I wouldn't say I ever broke a colt. I started them,
What does that mean?
Like breaking super old school, and that's like, you kind of breaking their spirit, And I would try to work with the horse.
So you're more compassionate.
I mean, like this,
Shiatsus
like it's like
and-
pressure,
Yeah.
pressure, release, Like horses are a herd animal, pressure, okay, release, come to me, release, you know what I mean? So like they know that you're the safe zone. And yeah, so I don't do super old school style, like whipping the horse and all that. Like, you always got to have like, can't be too soft if the horse disrespects you, or just got to give it some pressure. It's just pressure, Yeah, but it's a great job, and it's you're gonna get hurt, doing that. If you're riding 10 colts a day, you're bound to kind of get a little hurt, or even shooting horses. The first horse I ever shot professionally, I was an idiot. Like, you have the hoof in between your legs, and you're on the toe, and it was the first time I ever did it professionally. And I put it underneath, and the nail went through and went right through my finger. And I remember I was like trying to be professional. I was like 15 years old. I was like, oh, And the guy's like, everything okay? I was like, yeah, I'm good. And I was just bleeding everywhere, but I got the job done, But you live and learn.
All right.
Yeah.
So you've had 2 fights in Canada, and you're like kind of.
No, I had a lot more than that. Those are just the first 2 fights.
So you're seasonally doing cowboy work, and then you.
No, like so.
Kickboxing in the off season. What's the?
I started fighting at 15, and
Yeah.
then I fought until I was 17, and I had the car accident. And after when I was 17, and once I healed up, I moved away and I wasn't fighting. So I had like 8 fights back there, or like more than that. No, I had like I had a few fights, But I got to be ranked number 4 in Canada as an amateur.
Okay.
But altogether I had a few fights. You know what I mean? But I was pretty experienced young guy.
Yeah.
And then I moved away and I was cowboying for 6 years. Like I'm kind of just condensing this all, But I was cowboying on big outfits for 6 years.
Yeah.
So I was at Fort Baker, and I remember I worked for like 3 or 4 months straight, no days off, so I could get a week off. And I came to LA, and I just kind of got a little feel for it. And I remember taking the Greyhound. What an experience from up there to down here. And I remember a bunch of ex-cons going on there. I was like, whoa, what's going on, And I got to LA, and it was a cool experience. I found an acting class, and I was like, okay, like I'm gonna try this out. And I came down here, I got a job, and I started to. It was the first time not working on a ranch, or not working for loggers, or not shooting horses. And I was like, oh man, I'm a normal person. I'm a bouncer. Not really, yeah.
A typical day job.
Yeah,
kicking
right?
ass and chewing gum. Yeah.
Exactly. So then I found a gym down here, and I was like, okay, cool. I can start training again, because it's been a while since I was like training. And it was hard for me to find, like, I was not able for a long time to find what I had with Glenn. Because, like, you know, that was all I knew. And Glenn was something special. Like, you know, his dedication. I was just like, when I came down here and I trained with some people, I was like, whoa, man, like, damn, we were spoiled. You know, he was hard on us, but man, he was good. He was the best. Like, as far as making sure we were ready. Other people were just like, wow, you're talented. Okay, you want to fight? You know, okay, you're good to go. You know, and yeah, you kind of you figure you realize how lucky you were as a kid. You know, yeah.
Did you have any losses coming up, or it was just kind of like?
Yep, I had 2 losses back in Canada. I had 2 losses. I remember I lost in the Roadhouse, the same place, like, you know, my 4th fight. I fought like some 26-year-old guy. It was an ex-military guy, and I pretty much just like psyched myself out. I was like 5'10", and he was like 6'3", and he had a mohawk and sleeve tattoos, and I pretty much like I could have won that fight, but I just, you know, I didn't, you know, it wasn't my best. It wasn't my night. And then I had another fight after that, and I fought this guy that was like 25, and he was quite a bit more experienced than me, but I won that fight. I got robbed. Though it was his hometown, he got booed out of the stadium, you know. So I count it. But I won that fight. He knows it too, I think. And then after that, I went on a tear. I started knocking guys out in the first round for a while, you know. And then when I came down here, I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna have a fight. Like, I was doing the whole acting class thing, and I was starting to do short films, and I was like, all right, like, cool. I'm just gonna have one fight and let's see if I still have it. And I fought down at I can't remember, a little ballroom at Knott's Berry Farm down there. I can't remember where it was. It was like this hotel.
It's called the Blood Pit, but it's also the little ballroom.
Right? I know, right? And I remember, like, I fought this dude, and I was like independent, and the person that was coaching me, like, we got there and he didn't know how to wrap hands. I was like, you don't know how to wrap hands? Shit. It was just like, it was a crazy thing, and like everybody was like, well, this guy's independent and he's gonna get his ass whooped. And I necked that guy in the first round. They took him out on a stretcher, you know?
What is necking in the kickboxing art?
I necked him, like a kick to the face.
You kicked him in the neck.
Kicked him in the neck. And he was out, they took him on a stretcher, you know? And then after that, I just went on a pretty good tear. I just was getting a lot of good wins. Couple losses on the way too. This is part of the game, you know.
Yeah.
And and then I got to meet, like, my childhood. Like, Glenn's hero and my hero was Rob Common, and he's like one of the greatest fighters. He's a legend. And I remember when I was bouncing this one night, I saw him and I was just like, oh my God, you don't know, like you're like a legend, you know, like we like, he's like, oh cool. Rob's kind of got a lot of swag, and he's just like, oh, that's nice, thank you. And I was like, is there any way I could, like, you know, get your number and see if I can get a training session with you? He's like, yeah. So we exchanged numbers, and I said, could I get like a group of guys to train with you, because, you know, I couldn't afford that then. And he's like, yeah, for sure. So I got a group of guys, and we had the times, and all the guys bailed. All of them. I had like 6 guys, and they all bailed out. And I said, hey man, I'm really sorry for wasting your time. I can't afford this right now. And he said, it's fine. Just come up and train another client. It was at Fortune's. And he's like, yeah, well, I'll see what you got. So I came in there, and I worked with this guy a little bit. He was like really watching me. And then he held pads for me. He held for like 6 rounds. And then after that, he's like, man, you move just like me. And he's like, come back tomorrow. And we just started training every day. And then, but Rob would be in town for like 4 months, and then be gone for 4 months. He'd be in town for 2 months, and then be gone for 5 months. So it was very like, he was a gypsy, right? But like working with Rob, that was like a dream. We became very, very close. And he's a legend, you know? So I owe a lot to him and my style. And he cornered me for like, you know, I think 3 or 4 fights. So that was pretty big. And then I got with Chris Riley, and we've been on and off and like since 2015.
And who's Chris Riley, and why was he awesome?
He was the original owner of the Bomb Squad. And
who is the Bomb Squad?
The Bomb Squad was like the first big major MMA gym in LA.
Okay.
It was, and then it turned into Legends MMA.
Could you take us back a little bit through the history of MMA in LA? Like, because you have the Gracies and like.
I'm not too educated on all that
gotcha.
stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not like, you know, like a historian with all the MMA thing in LA. But you know, Chris was one of the first big gyms out here. I know that. You know.
Cool. Mm-hmm.
And we've been training on and off since 2015, and we're back together now. So yeah. It's good.
Did you ever like want to go MMA and like learn the jiu-jitsu?
I thought about it, yeah, because I did
And
Greco.
why didn't you?
I think because I'm kind of a purist, but I also like I thought about it. It was something that really was interesting to me, and I was during the pandemic I was rolling a lot too because I have a pretty big I did catch wrestling and Greco for 4 years at Pride Gym as well, so I have a pretty good wrestling base, and I was like, maybe I'll do this during the pandemic, and then I have a world title fight coming up, so I'm like, I'm fighting for a world title.
Tell us about your first world title fight. How did that come about? You're meeting your kung fu heroes, so to speak.
That's funny,
right? Like,
yeah.
You're in LA, you're doing some commercials, and like,
yeah.
I might as well get a world title while I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was fighting a lot, and then I remember my goal was just like I just wanted to be the Canadian champ. I thought that was like a big thing, so I hit up Mike Miles. He's a really big promoter back in Canada. And he said, yeah, I'll get you to fight my guy. And he flew me out, and I fought this guy that's doing really well right now as well. His name is Mark McKinnon. And we fought for the North American title. And I knocked him out in the second round, like hometown. And it was just like, place was like super rowdy. And when I knocked him out, it was like you could hear a pin drop. It was great. And I remember saying to the crowd, I'm actually Canadian, I'm not really from LA. And the place went wild. It was great. It was fun. So my first fight, I got the North American title. And then after that, I went and I got the Canadian title. And then after that, I got to fight for the WKA World Title. I fought a guy from England for that, and I was in Canada as well. So I had like, towards the end, I was like getting a lot of fights in Canada again. And then after that, I got with WCK Dennis Warner, and I started fighting for Dennis a whole bunch. And I got my first title for him was the IKKC International Title. And then I went to Thailand and I fought there 2 times, and I went back there the following year and I won a stadium title in Thailand.
What's the stadium title in Thailand?
Like there's stadiums there and they have champions of them. So it's like kind of like a big, like, a pretty big honor to have like a stadium title from Thailand. You know? So I won the Suwit Sadium Title, and I got to accomplish that, and I came back to LA and I won the WBC US National Title, which was a pretty big deal. And then I defended my IKKC International Title, and then I was supposed to fight, and then after that I had 2 world title fights, and I remember I was fighting this really good French fighter. He was like 24-1, and I was dominating him. Him and I were friends now, and we keep in touch, and I was dominating him pretty good, and he hit me in the 3rd round, hit me with a switch flying knee, and he broke through my ribs, and so I was out. And props to him, he got me, And then I had a fight after that, and I lost on points, and that was for world title. And then I was supposed to fight for another world title right when the pandemic was happening. It was supposed to be a dual world title actually, and the pandemic happened. It was a month after the fight, and I wasn't able to do it. So I just kept training during the pandemic, training. The pandemic released, and I got to fight for the WBL world title, and I won by 2nd round stoppage, TKO, low kicks. And then I have this fight coming up, and it's for the IKKC world title for the next weight class up. So I moved up a weight class.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's it like to knock someone out?
That's a pretty powerful feeling.
Yeah. Like what's it?
I don't know. It's hard. It's a
to a quote unquote civilian. Like what does it feel like?
Just power. Like this, you feel powerful. It's a super. It's a huge rush.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big rush, and you just feel powerful.
How does it compare to going on a roller coaster?
No, not at all. Like that, I freak out. It's a very like you go to your corner and like you see if the guy's totally out, and then right away if he's not totally out, if he's getting back up, you're just looking at your corner and seeing what they're telling you to do, and you just want to follow the instructions so you can finish the guy.
And then on the other end of that spectrum, what's it like to be hurt in the ring?
Oh, it's awful. It's embarrassing. It's I've been knocked out once, and I remember this wake. It was like a flash knockout where I was just out for a second. I was very aware. I was like looking at my buddy. I was like, "Did I get knocked out?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I was like looking at the bright lights above me. I was like, "Oh man," And I got up, and you feel kind of like, to me, maybe I'm very dramatic, but I felt kind of violated, And then I had another one where I was just like cut down to my. I had a cut. It was to my skull from my elbow, and I really feel like I could have won that fight, and that was just like, you're like, oh man, it was I take losses pretty hard,
Yeah.
So every time you lose, you feel like, I always take it like I let everybody that came out down, or that you let your coaches down, or you just didn't live up to your own potential. But then you just, you can go learn from those things.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's a deeply individual sport, but at the same time you're carrying the weight of expectation. Would you say, or like, is it community?
It's a team.
Yeah.
It's a team. Yeah.
Yeah.
That you're representing the team.
Cool. I think we have some clips of one of your championships. If we could roll those, and people can get a sense of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Phoebe, if you could put that on.
That was my WBC national title fight.
Yeah, congratulations.
That was a fun one, yeah.
When you were in Thailand, were you competing against Thais or?
No, I was competing against Europeans. I fought one Thai guy, but there was Europeans, there was a Japanese guy. Yeah.
There's differences in style throughout kickboxing, right? How are those? Is there like a Canadian style, an American style, a Thai style, or is it more
There's Thai
through
style.
lineages of coaches?
I think the really it's just it's Thai style and Dutch style. The two best things. There's other people to add other things, and they start to do a lot of boxing, and they kind of mix things together. But I think the two best styles is Dutch style is dominant, and then Thai style. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, how are Thai and Dutch style different? To
Dutch
explain
style-
to someone who's never heard of this before.
Dutch style is heavier on the boxing and harder, like with the low kicks, and they put the combinations together and set up the low kicks, and same with the kicks into hands. But Thais are really good clinchers, and they have their own way of kicking. It's really effective as well. They're both really good. They're both excellent. But I prefer Dutch style.
Yep.
It's because like Rob was, he was the Flying Dutchman. The Dutch.
Oh, it's in the name, right?
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about your acting and your artistic side and things like that? Or?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've been out here for 10 years, and I've been pursuing acting. I've been studying for about 10 years. I've done I've done 10 national commercials. I've done short films. I got to work with Kris Kristofferson and Bo Bridges
Cool.
on an indie. That was really cool.
Huh.
It was really,
What was
cool
your role,
experience.
and like, what was it like working with Kristofferson?
I was just the cowboy. I got to do like 4 scenes. It was fun. Kris is a legend. He's a really nice guy. Yeah, really good guy, and it's fun to watch him work. And he was cool. He was just telling a lot of really cool stories after, like in between takes, and like at craft service, he'd be telling stories about how he made it and his story and all that. It was very interesting to hear him talk.
So you act like a cowboy. Is it just like I'm recalling what I've done, or is there like a persona of a cowboy that works better on film, if that makes sense?
Well, that most of the stuff I booked has been like playing the Marlboro Man cowboy guy. Like commercially, that's almost all the stuff I booked, and that's my first circle.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thanks. Phoebe, could we get him delivering beer to the children of the world?
That's funny.
It's over!
Right?
That was fun.
Yeah.
That was a fun one. That was my first job actually.
Oh yeah.
And it was awesome. It was for a Super Bowl commercial, and man, that was the best at that time. I had never made money like that because you get paid residual. So it was a fun job.
So you're sitting there bouncing, and like a little newsy guy rolls up. Your residual, sir. You're like,
Oh, it was
wait a
great.
minute.
Oh, man. Yeah, I did 3 nationals that year. It
Yeah.
was great. I was like, oh man, this is so easy, and then you don't book for a while. It's so funny.
Do you view these as like 3 separate careers, or is it all like part of your kind of essence and upbringing, coming from artistic parents in a very rugged land called Valhalla?
Yeah, I think they're all a little differently. They're all passion. That's like, that's all I do. You know what I mean? It's just like acting, and I work with horses again now. Still, I wrangle horses for photo shoots. I work for a place called Four Oaks Farms, and I'm their wrangler out there. So if they have a job out there, like last week I was wrangling for a boot barn shoot, and then later on that week I wrangled for an actor. He had some kind of shoot he had to do out there, and I was just wrangling the horses. So I still get to work doing that stuff, and that's nice because that's kind of who I am, and being able to be around horses still it means a lot to me.
Do you have like a love for horses that's deeper than the job kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, like, I do. I love working with horses. It's like my happiest place. And also, it's kind of an essence of who I am. And then also that's fighting too, all those things, and acting is like, it's something I'm really passionate about too. And I want to keep pursuing that.
What do you enjoy most about acting, cowboy work, and then fighting? Or is it like the same joy that runs through all 3?
They're all different. I think fighting is like an adrenaline thing. It's always just like, and it's also dangerous because like, I could lose in front of all these people and let people down, and there's a lot of high stakes, or I could get seriously hurt. I've been put in the hospital one time when I broke my ribs. Also like I want to win this world title. I have to win this world title. So there's like really high stakes and a lot of pressure. But I've done it a lot. Like I have 40 pro fights. So there's that. And then cowboying, there was a lot of pressure when I was cowboying for a living. But now, like when I'm doing it now, I'm pretty seasoned. So when I'm on set, it's just, I'm very confident. I'm doing the damn thing. I've worked on million-acre ranches, and I'm wrangling horses for photo shoots for magazines and stuff. So it's like it's very relaxed, and I feel like I'm the man there, And acting is, I want to play cowboys on film. I think when I was a kid, that's always when I saw films, I was like, oh man, so I want to be a cowboy when I grow up, and I did, and I got to do it. I did it for 6 years. And I'm still a cowboy. I'm still wrangling horses. But I think what I really also want to do is play a cowboy on film. I think that's one of the things I was mistaken about. Is like I wanted to be an actor and play a cowboy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a meta cowboy, like the cowboy of cowboys. Yeah.
Yeah.
The archetype, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that the man who broke 3 of your ribs is now a good friend of yours.
We're cordial. We were
cordial.
We were like texting today. And
All right. Well, a text buddy.
No, yeah, he's a good guy. He lives in France. So we're not going getting beers on the weekend.
What's the process of like that kind of friendship, right? Because that's one of the interesting things that like
we both had like, I remember like we followed each other on social media, and then we both had a conversation that's like private about the fight, and we both gave each other a lot of props and talked about the fight a bit, and there's just like a lot of mutual respect, and he's a great kid, and respect to him, and he respects me, and I hope he just keeps kicking ass because he's doing really well too. Yeah, he's a champion,
Yeah. So what's the character of a champion versus like, because you have so many personality types and you've defeated them all, like, right? Like someone who's ragey when they fight versus like.
I'm not. I'm like, certain people are super emotional. I'm not emotional. I'm like very methodical. So I have a game plan. If the game plan doesn't work, there's plan B and plan C. And I'm going to keep on chipping at that. It's like Rob. Rob is a very smart fighter, and I'm a pretty intelligent fighter. So, but if I see the kill and I've hurt the guy, then I'm gonna go for the kill. Like, yeah, I go for it. But I'm like a very stone person. Like, I'm very icy when I'm in the ring.
Yeah.
I'm not emotional. I'm not like, I don't, get angry. If I get hurt or something like that, okay, how am I gonna win? And like go back to the plan. So, I don't get emotional. I'm very kind of emotionless in the ring.
Can you, I just wonder if you could talk about one of the amazing things of fighting, because you have strategies, but fighting's, it's so fast and the consequences are high, obviously, that it's instinctual as well. So how do you blend strategy with your trained instincts?
I think when you get to have a certain amount of experience, those things are going to happen. Like, I have 40 pro fights, and I can hear my corner. I train for this fight. I know what I need to do, Sometimes it might take a second for you to get in the rhythm of the fight, but like that just comes with experience. Those things should be learned in the amateurs, in my opinion, and then as a young professional. I'm in my prime right now, and I'm like, I should know those things. I should be able to handle that kind of pressure. I should be able to hear my corner. I should be able to execute the game plan. I have a lot of fights, right?
So what's the key difference between an amateur and a pro then? And like, is it like an awareness of all things?
Experience, all-around experience, like huge. Like your first of all is just, you're not fighting full rules. You're fighting with little elbow pads on, and professionals, you're allowed to elbow and knee each other in the face, and it's 3-minute rounds, not 2-minute rounds, which that doesn't seem like a lot, but that's a world of difference. And it's just different, like amateurs can go like a million, like they can go pretty hard and just keep going at a really high pace. But if you're a pro and you're seasoned, like if you see somebody coming at you like that, you can pick them off, And when you get to be that level, it's different. Like I have this kid I train. He's not a kid, he's a young man now, and he's like my little brother. And I'm not a coach, I'm not a fight trainer, but I took this kid under my wing, and he has 10 fights now. He's now the California state champion and the U.S. national champion, and the IKF, that's the sanction body, they just ranked him, and he's now the #1 amateur in the world. And that's the only fighter I've ever trained, and he's the #1 amateur. And a lot of guys that are good fighters are not the best trainers. And I do take a lot of pride in that, because I'm not trying to be a trainer, But he is like a really skilled amateur. But still, he's known for having this gas tank and just go, 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 go. He just needs to pull it back just a little bit and sit down those punches a little more, because, man, he has a lot of power. If he just calms down a little bit, he's going to be able to really start laying some guys really out, and it's exciting, because he's got a lot of power for that weight class,
And then, what's the difference between weight classes, and why is that so important, and things like, what does that affect? And
I mean, like, a lot of people cut extreme. I used to cut a lot of weight, and for me, the benefits were not there. It really affected me in a negative way. I think extreme weight cutting is kind of silly.
And can you describe that for the uninitiated?
I mean, you would diet down, lose 15 pounds, and then you would fight week. You would kind of starve yourself and go in the saunas and lose another 15 pounds. You lose 30 pounds, and it was not a big benefit to me. You still cut some weight, but I think 10 pounds is a perfect amount of weight to cut, or if you want to cut 15, that's fine. But I think when you're starting to do 20, 30-pound cuts, you're just getting kind of stupid and risky. And, you're fighting this whole thing, this scale, your whole fight camp, when you should be focusing on your opponent, and you're overtraining to burn as many calories. It's just not smart. I think that weight cutting has kind of gotten out of control.
Yeah. So people should fight at kind of their natural weight with.
Yeah, like a lot of people are not the healthiest. A lot of fighters balloon up between fights and they get out of shape. And if you're a professional, you should stay in shape all the time. You should be ready to go. And if you want to drop 10 pounds for a fight, that's great. Drop 10 pounds. I used to cut extreme amounts of weight, and I don't cut that anymore. Because I'm in pretty good shape all the time. If I need to drop a little bit, I can do that, and I'm good to go. I'm in good shape. I hit really hard for my weight class. I'm really explosive.
Cool.
So
when's your fight, and where is it? And how should people buy tickets from you and things like that?
It is going to be at the Burbank Marriott, April 23rd.
All right.
And you can DM me on social media, Charles Valhalla Bisset, and I will direct you to tickets. And it's going to be for the IKKC World Title. I'm fighting a very game opponent. He's going to bring the fight to me, and I want to meet him in the middle.
Cool. I look forward to being there ringside, and I'm going to open it up to the audience for any questions. And Thank you for this elucidating and wonderful conversation.
Cheers.
Appreciate it a lot.
So I'll go to the combat veteran in the front row here first.
So we're a little late, so keep the questions precise, if we could.
Did you ever fight bare-fisted and get hurt?
No, sir. I mean, you mean like in the street, or like a competition?
Have you ever been in a fight where you were fighting bare-fisted?
Yeah, I've been in street fights before.
And what happened to it? What happened to you or the other fellow?
I've had a couple, but something not a very good thing happened. I had a pretty not a good experience, you know, where I thought I could have gotten in a lot of trouble, and luckily I didn't get in trouble, and he ended up being okay, but that was a very scary thing for me, and yeah.
What weight division are you in?
Super cruiserweight.
Super cruiserweight?
Yes, sir.
What is that? What's that pound?
200 pounds.
How tall are you?
6'1".
So I have two questions for you. So I've only been to a kickbox match in Thailand, and of course they have music ringside. Do they ever do anything like that other than Thailand?
No, they have that. They have the music here too. There's a lot of people seal the ring and do the Y crew, the dance when you're in Thailand. They don't do that so much. They were doing that here, but like I think over here most North Americaners don't really want to see that. They just like, and me personally, I like to just, okay, we're at a fight, you can play the music if you want to. If you want to seal the ring, let's go to the four corners, that's fine, but don't do the whole dance. Myself, this is just my opinion, because people want to see the fights, and the common audience out here would lose interest.
Well, the one I saw in Thailand, actually, I'm a composer, and I recorded a CD of Thai kickbox music.
No, very cool.
But they did it. They started, the dance at the beginning, but then the entire session they were playing, going along with the action.
The first 2 rounds they kind of give the first 2 rounds away in Thailand for betting purposes, and it's for betting, and then the last 3 rounds are really the fight.
Oh, interesting. So the other question is, you keep mentioning about hearing the corner. What does that mean?
My coaches.
And so they're the entire time they're saying, okay, do such and such, and you have to.
And I listen, and I like you get to have a relationship with your coach where you should, if you're wanting to go that next level, like you need to learn listen to your coaches, I think,
And what kind of stuff will he tell you? Or, is it?
Even when I'm coaching, like when I'm coaching my fighter, I'll be like, low kicks, basic, jab, low kick, 1-3 low kick, jab, hook, low kick. Well, I'm a Dutch fighter, so like we would love the low kick, and or this feint up, double the jab up, or the last guy I fought, I came back to the corner, and I'm always just saying, like, I always ask, even though it was my last fight, it was very obvious, like it was a very dominant fight, like his legs were gone after the first round, and I came back with like, how's that round? And my coach, he's Chris Riley, he goes, he has a bit of a valley voice, and he's like, yeah, you won. He's like, yeah. He's like, the guy's turning purple, So, they were both just like, yeah, jab, cross the body, hook to the head, and chop the leg. A couple more kicks.
So without that, it would be much more difficult to win a fight. So if you didn't have...
You do not see what the coach sees. And that's what Glenn said at the beginning, and that's what all really good coaches, you don't have eyes. Because they're doing things, the other guy could be dropping his right hand, it could be dropping his left hand, or like, you could be hitting that leg a lot, and you could be so close to stopping them on low kicks, or like, but you don't see what they see. So they're really your eyes. You have a lot of instincts in there. You see things in there, but they see something that you don't. And that's why having a good team is important,
Yeah, interesting. Cool.
What opponent do you feel gave you your best fighting experience in a match?
No, man, there's quite a few. I couldn't say that, There's like a top 10. I couldn't say, and I wouldn't want to disrespect any of those guys in the top 10, because they were all like really worthy opponents, They were good.
You said you were knocked out once.
Mm-hmm.
Would you describe, after you've been hit, what happened to you? Did you just, like you went to sleep, or is it slow?
No, it was a flash knockdown. So I was out for like maybe 2 seconds.
Okay.
And I have a really good chin. Like the guy I fought was a heavyweight, and he hit me like 3 times, and I went down finally, and I woke up, and it was only, I hit the ground, and I woke up right away when I hit the ground, and I woke up, and I didn't have any headaches or anything like that, and I just, someone of my buddies like, I got knocked out, and he's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. You know?
I've had 3 occasions, I've never been knocked out, but I've had 3 occasions where through pain, it just seemed like I never really went completely out, but I could see like everything's just shrinking in front of me. And another time, I was the winning bidder at a night of high adventure on a ride in a private jet. And it was a French training jet that they used in the Air Force. And he pulled some really high G's, and I could just see.
Tunnel vision?
I could just, yeah, tunnel vision going on. Yeah.
Do you lose vision if you lose consciousness or color
It's just like waking up for a nap. Like my experience, I've heard other guys got like sick and stuff. They were concussed. I had no experience like that. It was just like I woke up from a nap. You know, it wasn't bad at all. And it was just like, okay, you know, like hey, you know. Then this like depression after.
So do you sing opera?
No, I did not take on the family gene.
Now, I myself, I love cowboy stuff as well. I have a Colt Navy 1851 pistol. Oh, cool. I was wondering if you might like any firearms, and if you do, which one would you prefer for a role as a cowboy?
Right. I own a Colt 44, 1861, or yeah, 1861, I believe, and I have just home protection guns too, and I have a 30-06. You know, I have a few guns back home as well. But yeah, and I have like, you know, a couple handgun guns back as well, you know, for home protection as well.
How remunerative is professional fighting? Can you make a living on it?
Thai boxing is not like, you know, I'm not killing it with Thai boxing. I'm like a world champion, but it's like, you know, it's nice. Like I can be set for like a bit, you know, when I have a fight. This fight will be good, but it's not like you need to have a side job. I could focus totally on the fighting, but myself, I like to save money and try to do something. So I have other things I do, like the wrangling the horses. And so when I wrangle the horses, then I can, if I book a job with acting or if I have a fight, I can try to invest or put that money away. But like, if I were just gonna focus on just the fighting, it would be getting by, you know? It wouldn't be, I would not be balling, doing well, you know?
How about those who are just starting?
Amateurs, well, if you're amateur, you're not gonna make any money, you know? Like you're doing it for the passion, and then if you're also just a brand new pro, you know, you're not gonna make a lot of money. It's not gonna, it's like you have to work your way up. Same with anything, with boxing or MMA, it's, you know, you're starting as an amateur or like or even just an early pro, you're not making a lot of money. It's like 5 and 5, 500 and 500, or not even that sometimes.
Pretty much like any profession then.
Yeah, you're starting at the bottom, you know? Yes, sir.
So I've got another question. If you wanted to be a prospective pugilist, in the old days in the American high school, there was Greco-Roman wrestling, which was surprisingly tough in my book. Boxing, but you know, you went straight to Thai kickboxing. But if you could pick a path or recommend a path, what would be the ideal basis or foundation to build on?
For today?
Yeah,
I mean,
today.
I'm a Thai boxer. I mean, like I think Thai boxing is the best because you got knees, elbows, kicks, and punches. You got everything, and you got clinch. And my clinch is a little different from a lot of people because I did Greco-Roman for 4 years as well. So I kind of add that in with my Thai clinch as well. But Thai boxing is like, you know, it's my passion. Then if I say boxing is great too, and I think wrestling is great too. Jiu-jitsu is great. They all have their spot, but I love Muay Thai, Thai boxing.
And is there much grappling? Is the
yeah,
groundwork?
There's not groundwork, but like, you know, there's standing clinch, there's clinch work, you know?
Oh, there's a question on the picture that's on the screen right now.
Read the question to us.
I'm sorry. On the screen is a picture of a gentleman that looks like doing riding Roman style, standing up on a horse with...
That would be my father back in his rodeo days. That's my dad. Yep, he was a trick rider, a rodeo clown, a bull rider, a bareback bronc rider, and a saddle bronc rider. My dad was a bit of a stud.
And for the audience, can you talk about how studly a rodeo clown is?
I mean, I just saw pictures. This is way before my time. My dad's he had me when he was old. My dad's now 81. So.
But they're the guys like when the cowboy's hurt, right? They distract the bull.
They protect the cowboy. And my dad did. He was like a 5-event cowboy. He was a good hand, you know, and he's still around. Yeah.
Well, thank you all. And Phoebe, please guide us out. Thank you again, Charles. And looking forward to sitting ringside and watching you get another title.
Thanks, brother.